woman he called a joke was the same woman who saved his life 20 minutes later. Nobody in that glass hotel lobby knew her name. They only saw her torn coat, her cracked shoes, and the way she stood near the entrance like she was hoping someone would let her warm up for just a minute. The Gala inside sparkled with gold lights and champagne towers. Outside, she was invisible, until Julian walked out to greet his guests and decided she would make a funny story. He waved his hand toward her like she was a prop in a magic show. "Look at this," he said, laughing to the crowd of investors behind him. "This is what happens when you don't work hard in life. Somebody take a picture, post it, caption it, Motivation Monday." The crowd laughed, the kind of laugh people give when they want to be liked by the man holding the microphone. Camera phones lifted, flashes went off. The woman did not yell, she did not cry. She simply lowered her eyes, picked up the small bag at her feet, and walked away into the cold. Nobody thought about her again, not for 20 minutes. Inside, the gala rolled on the way, expensive parties always do. Julian took the stage to give his keynote speech, the one about vision, legacy, and building an empire from nothing, which was strange because everyone in the room knew his father had handed him the company on a silver plate. He picked up a shrimp appetizer from a passing tray, popped it into his mouth mid-sentence, and kept talking. Then his words stopped. His hand went to his throat. His face turned red, then a terrible shade of purple. He staggered back, knocking over the microphone stand, and the sound of it crashing to the floor echoed louder than any applause he had ever received. 200 wealthy, powerful people froze. Nobody moved. Phones that once filmed his joke now filmed his suffering, because that is what people do when they don't know what else to do. Security guards stood like statues. His own assistant dropped her clipboard and just stared. Somebody near the back whispered, "Is he choking?" as if saying it quietly would make it less true. That is when the doors at the far end of the ballroom swung open. The woman in the torn coat walked in like she belonged there, like the velvet ropes, and the guards meant nothing to her. She moved past shocked faces, past champagne glasses frozen in midair, straight to Julian, who was now on his knees, clawing at his own throat. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, one sharp thrust under his ribs. Nothing happened. She tried again, calm as still water, her hands finding the exact spot like she had done this 100 times before. On the third thrust, the piece of shrimp flew out of his mouth and landed somewhere near a woman's designer heels. Julian gasped. He pulled in air like a man surfacing from the bottom of the ocean. His whole body shook, and when he finally turned around to see who had just saved his life, the woman was already gone. She slipped through the same doors she came from, disappearing into the night, leaving nothing behind but a room full of people holding their phones, replaying the moment over and over. By morning, the video had 10 million views. People online did not care about Julian's company or his keynote speech. They cared about her, the woman in the torn coat who saved a rich man's life after he humiliated her in front of a crowd. News channels picked it up. Strangers on the internet called her an angel. They called Julian something much worse. His publicist called him at 6 in the morning, her voice shaking. "Julian, we need to find her. We need a photo of you two together. A hug, a donation, something. Right now the internet thinks you're a monster, and honestly, they might be right." Julian did not think about gratitude. He thought about damage control. He pictured the headline, "CEO thanks the woman who saved him," and how it would erase the other headline that was already spreading like fire, "CEO mocks homeless woman minutes before she saves his life." He gathered his team. "Find her," he said. "Offer her money. Get the photo. Fix this." But she was hard to find. There was no name attached to any shelter, no record in any system his people searched, no social media, no address, nothing. It was like chasing a shadow. After 3 days of failure, Julian stopped caring about finding her and convinced himself she was just a stranger passing through. A lucky coincidence. Someone who would fade from memory the way most difficult stories do. He was wrong. A week later, a letter arrived at company headquarters. Not an email, an actual letter, cream-colored paper, sealed the old-fashioned way. It was addressed to the full board of directors, calling an emergency meeting. The subject line made every executive's stomach drop. Change in leadership and majority shareholder review. Julian assumed it was a merger. He walked into the boardroom that morning, wearing his best suit, the confident smile he always wore when he thought he was the smartest person in the room. He expected numbers, contracts, maybe a handshake with some tech founder wanting to buy in. Instead, he found her. Sitting in the chairman's seat, at the head of the long table, was the woman from the gala. Except she looked nothing like the woman from the gala. Her coat was gone. In its place was a tailored charcoal suit that looked like it cost more than his car. Her hair was done. Her posture was straight, calm, unshaken. The room went silent the moment he saw her face, because even without the torn coat, he recognized her instantly. Julian actually laughed, a nervous, confused laugh. "What is this?" he said. "Some kind of joke?" The woman folded her hands on the table. "My name is Maya Vance," she said, her voice steady and quiet, the kind of quiet that makes a room lean in closer. "I am the majority shareholder of this company. I have been for 6 years." Nobody in the room breathed. "I don't run things from an office," Maya continued. "I run things by watching, by walking through the places my companies touch, by seeing how the people at the top treat the people who have nothing. It tells me everything I need to know about whether a company deserves to keep growing or whether it's rotting from the inside." Julian's confident smile was gone now. His hands gripped the edge of the table. "You mean," he started, but couldn't finish the sentence. "I mean I was outside your gala for a reason," Maya said. "I mean I've watched you for months. And I mean I have the whole thing on video in case anyone in this room forgot what kind of man they've been reporting to." She pressed a button on the table. A screen behind her lit up, and the room watched Julian's own voice fill the air. "Look at this. This is what happens when you don't work hard in life. Somebody take a picture." The laughter from that night played back too, cold and cruel in the silence of the boardroom. Executives who had once laughed along at the gala now looked down at their hands, unable to meet Maya's eyes. "This is the man who represents your brand," Maya said, turning to face the board. "This is the character behind the company you've all invested your careers in. And 3 weeks ago, this same man used the security team to physically remove me from the property. Twice." Julian's mouth opened. He tried to explain that he didn't know, that he would have never, that things were different now. Maya lifted one hand, and he stopped talking immediately, like the room itself demanded silence for her. "You valued my life for exactly the 20 minutes it was useful to your image," Maya said. "Before that, and after that, I was invisible to you. That tells me everything about who you really are when nobody's watching. Except somebody was always watching. Me." The board members shifted in their seats. Maya slid a folder across the table. "I've already secured the votes," she said. "Effective today, Julian is removed from his position as chief executive. His stock options are void due to conduct clauses tied to public ethical violations. There will be no severance package." Julian stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "You can't do this," he said, his voice cracking. "I built relationships in this company. I have history here." "You have a history of stepping over people," Maya said calmly. "That ends today." Security walked in then. The same 2 guards who had once dragged Maya away from the front steps of that very building while Julian watched and did nothing. Now they stood beside his chair, waiting for a single word from Maya to escort him out. She gave it. Julian's face went pale as he realized the room had already moved on without him. Nobody stood to shake his hand. Nobody said a kind word. The same executives who laughed at his jokes weeks ago now watched him walk out in complete silence, his footsteps the only sound in a room full of people who had learned, in real time, exactly how quickly power can disappear. When the doors closed behind him, Maya turned to the remaining board members, her expression softening for the first time. "Starting this quarter," she said, 20% of company profits will fund housing programs, job training, and support services for people experiencing homelessness in this city. Not as charity, as correction. Because somewhere out there right now, someone is being ignored the same way I was. And they might be the very person who saves this company one day, if we give them the chance." The room, still shaken, slowly began to applaud. Not out of fear this time, but out of something closer to respect. Outside, snow had started to fall over the city. Somewhere in that same crowd of strangers walking the sidewalks, unseen and unheard, There were 100 more people just like Maya used to be, carrying stories nobody bothered to ask about, worth nobody bothered to notice. True power was never about the size of an office or the weight of a title. It was about how a person treated someone who could give them absolutely nothing in return. Maya Vance had learned that lesson from the inside of a shelter, wearing a torn coat in the freezing cold, invisible to everyone who mattered, until the one moment she chose to save a stranger's life anyway. And when the world finally saw her clearly, it saw exactly what kind of person had been standing in front of them the entire time.